One day, while I was doing my practicum at the jail, my supervisor and I were coming back from lunch when a guard came running up to us excitedly. She told us that we needed to hurry and get one of the inmates out before another inmate killed him. She proceeded to tell us the story of this one young kid was trying to be funny. The older guy, he's well known and in hard time and dangerous. You don't want to mess with him. And she was very concerned that this young man was going to get hurt. When we went down to the cell, we separated the inmates, and he was talking to us about getting this guy out, and the kid winds up like he's going to throw a punch and hit him right in the temple. Well, the guy never skipped a beat. He just kept talking, and the kid stopped about an inch away. And so later on, when we had gotten everything sorted out, and I was sitting next to him silently, I really didn't know what to say to the man, but for some reason I asked him how he knew the guy wasn't going to hit him. And he just started laughing so hard that it made me laugh too. I'm not sure why, but he said, I knew he wasn't going to hit me because I would have killed him. And it just seemed like in a moment he went from this just kid having fun laughing and back to the dangerous man again. I guess the moral to that story is there's a lot of mental illness at the jail, and there isn't enough time to give these people the sort of therapeutic treatment that they need. It's an overburdened system. The mental health care system was really transformed in 1975 by the Supreme Court decision Donaldson and O'Connor. That time, a family member could have somebody committed for really no valid reason at all, and there were many people being held in psychiatric hospitals against their will. The Donaldson decision, rightly so, said that it was not lawful to hold a nonviolent person against their will if they could live safely and freely in the environment. The problem is that it's hard to define if someone is capable of living safely and freely out in the world. And today that standard is the point of death. And so many of these people have nowhere to turn. When the patients were released and it was deinstitutionalized in 1975, there was a plan for government funding to come and have outpatient services for these people that were being released from the clinics. However, that funding fell through, and these mental health services really were never made available to people. They have ended up in the jails, incarcerated, and therefore the criminal justice system has become a predominant mental health service provider in our country. In 1975, there were about 700,000 people in psychiatric hospitals. Today, only about 100,000. If we look at the difference in the population growth, that tells us that there are a lot of people who need help that are either in jail or walking around. A lot of the homeless people are also suffering with mental illness. It's more people than you might think. Newsweek puts it at 1 in 5 people suffers from a mental disorder, although the Center for Disease Control says it's at 25%, 1 in 4. There are, according to the Center for Disease Control, 9.3 million adults that have a severe, pervasive, and persistent mental disorder that impedes their functioning in life. And that's a lot of people, and most of the healthcare, mental health care, is received by the wealthier class. That's because the system has been pay for mental health care services. The health insurance is lagging when it comes to mental health care. And so therapists have tended to gravitate toward private practice, which is much more lucrative. Some can charge up to $400 an hour. And this self-exploration time that people have had, they're dealing with the people who are worried rather than the people who are really in need. There are things we need to do to change this. One thing, we need more qualified mental health care providers. CPS has had difficulty filling positions, even though they've given raises several times. Many hospitals and agencies have trouble finding this. For one thing, it requires a master or doctorate level education oftentimes to be successful in the field and to really make a difference in helping people heal these mental disorders. With the rising cost of education, that is really prohibitive for some. The government funding, there are also, this is a very important thing that the government needs to not ignore the problem. Most of the homeless population is also suffering from mental illness. Many of the inmates are incarcerated for stealing supplies or food or for breaking in someplace to sleep. In fact, the jail always would fill up when the weather got cold. My supervisor would call them frequent flyers. We need to do a better job than this for these people. The government funding is one thing. Also, studies show that community outreach is helpful. The study involving older people and ethnic minorities who tend to be underserved showed that these well-being interventions enhanced by the community involvement was very effective. All these things together should be considered, every option that we can find. Another one is psychologists being able to prescribe psychotropic medications so that psychiatrists don't spend all their time writing prescriptions. Every option should be explored because we need to do a better job with providing mental health care service to all Americans.